The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast belong solely to those expressing them and do not necessarily reflect the OSIP Foundation Incorporated or any other group or individual. This podcast may contain dialogue or subject material that could be considered for mature audiences only. All aspects of How You Play the Game and the OSIP Foundation Incorporated are protected by copyright and other state and federal intellectual property laws. Unauthorized use without the express written consent of the OSIP Foundation Incorporated is strictly prohibited. If you're interested in sponsoring How You Play the Game, please email us at podcast@osipfoundation.org. Your sponsorship may be tax deductible. Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of How You Play the Game, the official podcast of the OSIP Foundation Incorporated. Yours truly, Jack Furlong, with you as we talked about what's going on as far as the world of sportsmanship is concerned. This is the second episode of the month of June. The year is 2025. Glad you can be with us. As always, check us out online at osipfoundation.org. If you'd like to contact the show, please use the email address podcast@osipfoundation.org. And on the socials, we're at facebook.com/osipfoundation, X and Instagram at osipfoundation, hashtag how you play the game, and all the other good stuff like Amazon and YouTube and yada, yada, yada. So we got a couple of things to discuss here. First, a huge thank you to everyone who came out to our third annual celebration on June 1st. The event was an enormous success. We grossed over $6,000 towards our cause. We were able to finally meet the assemblywomen who passed the Penalty Box Act here in New Jersey, and we're happy to say that a lot of that legislation was signed into law here in the state. So there's a lot of stuff that's really good here. It's so nice to know that the penalties for assault on adults at these sporting events have increased. We're very, very thankful to our donors who came out to support us, who won things at our silent auction. It was just great. It was a wonderful, wonderful evening, and we couldn't do it without you. So we really hope that if you were unable to join us, that you can join us next year. It's going to be another fantastic event. Don't have many details on it at the moment, obviously, but really, really hope that you can be there for our fourth celebration in 2026. So the second thing wanted to discuss, this was actually just sent to me maybe an hour before I recorded this episode. Do you remember the story of James Neely, who was the umpire in his 70s in Branchburg, New Jersey, who was assaulted on the field by a Staten Island coach named Jerry Otero? The verdict has finally come down in the case, and Neely has been awarded $650,000 in the verdict. The specifics of it that I'd like to point out are that $500,000 will come in compensatory damages. So it sounds like that sounds like something coming from the insurance company and whatnot. But then there's a $150,000 coming in punitive damages, which will come from Otero's assets, not insurance. Which is pretty insane if you think about it. When you look at these types of cases, it depends on the state. It depends on the nature of the charge. There's a lot of legal stuff that goes into this. Believe me, if you haven't just taken a quick glance at some of this legal stuff, you try it and then tell me that you didn't develop a drinking problem. I mean, it is that nuts sometimes. But in this case, it's pretty amazing that this was able to happen. It sucks that it takes 3 years for something like this to get settled. That's the legal process. That's the system. Okay, there's nothing we can do about that. There's discovery. There's a lot of stuff. In this case, obviously, there was both a civil and a criminal aspect to it. So there's a lot of different things that go on. But we're just happy, or at least I'm just very happy that the book is now closed on this. And Otero was also banned from ever coaching again. So there's a lot of good stuff here, and I was thinking about it too. I'm not one to demand a pound of flesh, for a lot of stuff. Like, to me, I would much rather focus on the positive. I would much rather tip my cap to those who exemplify good sportsmanship, in the hopes that we lead by example, because that's a lot of how OSIP succeeds. We have to empower our allies. So it's very difficult for me to talk about the bad stuff sometimes. And in this case, it's sad that we have to celebrate this. But I just wanted to point it out, provide an update that this case that we've been kind of monitoring for, a couple of years now, it looks like it's finally coming to its end. And I'm, it's a shame, because Neely should have never had to, deal with this. He's going to have, repercussions that follow him for the rest of his life, regarding his jaw where he was punched in the assault, stuff like that. He's done umpiring baseball, I'll tell you that much. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. You hope that the financial aspect of this makes up for that, tries to make him whole. But does it ever actually work? I don't know. You could make the argument that no, it doesn't. So, we celebrate this. We wish it never had to come to this, but it's nice to know that there is a resolution here, and we fully support it, and just wish the best for Mr. Neely as he moves forward with this, and tries to get on with his life. The final thing I'd like to discuss today, this is really where the meat and potatoes of this episode lie. So, not too recently, there was a series between the visiting Chicago Cubs and the hosting Detroit Tigers. It was actually a very, very good series because both teams are playing very, very well right now. And what happened was there was a situation in one of the games. I want to say it was the Saturday afternoon game of the 3-game series. And the home plate umpire was Derek Thomas, who is relatively new. He was a call-up, and if I Google his name right now, it looks like he may still be a call-up umpire at this moment. Can't really tell if he is. I feel I should be better with this. I should know if he's been, fully hired. Let me see if I can find that for you. But anyway, while I look at that, here I'll try and go through this a little bit more. Oh, here we go. This'll help me out here. Yeah, he's still a call-up umpire. Okay, he has not been hired to the full-time staff just yet. But he's a call-up umpire, shuttling back and forth between between the AAA and the majors. And in this particular game, he was actually having a very, very good game. There was not a lot of poor pitches called in this game. Well, it looks like Nico Hoerner, who is the Cubs' second baseman, he strikes out on a pitch that was borderline. Could you have argued that he missed the pitch? Maybe, but it was not an egregious miss. And when you look at his overall scorecard from the game, which is always a subjective thing, let's not even debate that. Okay, what the public sees versus what is behind closed doors is different. We've always discussed that. He didn't have a bad game. He had a relatively good game. He missed his handful as every average umpire does, and it was not an issue. Well, in this situation, Hoerner strikes out looking, and he turns around to Derek Thomas and he says something to the effect of, "You're having a really bad day," and that resulted in Nico Hoerner's immediate ejection. So then Craig Counsell, the manager of the Cubs, comes out to argue. He gets tossed as well. And there was a lot of fallout after the game. The Cubs are like, "Oh, he didn't say anything to get ejected, blah, 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 blah." And let me be the first to tell you, if you're listening, he did say something to be ejected. If you watch the clip, you're like, "Oh, he never got demonstrative. He never did this. He used the magic word. And what's the magic word? You. If you're not familiar with this in officiating, okay? The word you, okay, that refers to the other person to whom you are speaking is the magic word. There's a difference between the phrase, that's fucking bullshit, and you're fucking bullshit. The first one is about a call, okay? And officials are not going to dump people. They're not going to eject people, especially at the biggest level, for saying that. But as soon as you say the word you and you make it about the umpire, you're gone. It's that simple. It is that simple, folks. Okay? And the same thing happens at all other levels. I can't tell you. I remember vividly, significant instances in my officiating career where a coach wants to argue, and the moment that the coach may not say any bad words, but the moment he says the word you cost us that, you missed that, blah, 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 done. Either an ejection or a restriction to the bench in high school sports. It's an immediate offense. I'm sorry. Okay? So for the Cubs to come out and say he didn't say anything worthy of an ejection, he did. And I hope that the people who are listening to this are educated in the fact that that is the God's honest truth. Please do not take the side of the Cubs to say, oh, it wasn't that bad. No. Okay? He said the magic word, which is the word you. So it is an ejectable offense. Now, that being said, something got really out of hand here. Shortly thereafter, on 97.1, The Ticket, which is an FM radio station in Detroit, sports talk radio, host Mike Valenti went on a rant that was a little too far. The headline I'm reading from Audacity.com says, Mike Valenti on home plate umpires, quote, get rid of these idiots. Okay? And Valenti went on to say in his rant, I think it's clear as day, we got to get rid of MLB umps. And for Valenti, and now I'm quoting the article, it brought into focus 3 reasons why Major League Baseball needs to shift from human umps behind the plate to robot umps and an automated strike zone. Valenti says, quote, reason number 1, they're bitches. You got to get rid of these guys. If I were Craig Counsell, I would have punched that guy for throwing Horner out of the game. First of all, you missed the call. Own it. Second of all, you throw a guy out for going, man, you're having a bad day. He didn't call his mom a whore. That's one. I'm not here to watch umps. I'm here to watch players. I don't like looking at umps. I don't like their faces. Valenti continues. 2, they're objectively bad at their job. Period. Amen. Hallelujah. Has pitch framing made it any easier? No, but they're bad. They cost you games. Singular missed calls, shift and at bat. Do you know the difference between a 2-1 count and a 1-2 count in the expected outcome? It's massive. Much less when you get a bad strike 3 call. They're bad at their job. He continues. 3, it's all about if you watch the games on TV. The pitch framing has ruined the ability to watch a baseball game. I can't take it anymore. You see catchers scooping the ball out of the dirt and bringing it up to the middle of the plate, and it's like, come on, man, what kind of 3-card Monty is this? The pitch framing is killing television viewing. Valenti goes on to offer 2 solutions to the problem. Quote, 1, robo-umps, full stop, we're done. Get rid of these idiots and just have robot umps. Red light is a strike, green light is a ball, done. It takes away from the pitch framing. We're just where we are. You can't fool anyone. Or choice B, we keep these bloated idiots, but institute what they're doing in the minors, the challenge system. You know where I stand. I can't do any more challenges, any more reviews, any more red bean bags, but if that's what you want, you can have it. Nico Horner could have challenged the call. He would have been right, and we move the game on. But we have to do something about MLB umps. It is either robot or challenge system. MLB can't start next year this way, and my prediction is they won't start next year this way. End quote. Mike, come back to me here, buddy. What you just said on your radio program is not just inherently incorrect. It's insulting. I am insulted by what you said. Your reason number 1 for this is, quote, they're bitches. The fact that we're allowed to have that on over-the-air radio is quite sad. The fact that you've said, if I were Craig Counsell, I would have punched that guy for throwing Horner out of the game. That's pretty close, not exact, but pretty close to being an advocate for violence against officials. Not exact. Won't stand up in a court of law. But read between the lines in the court of public opinion. That's pretty bad, Mike. I'm insulted and I'm offended that you are allowed to have this job on the radio and say these things. I don't like calling for people's jobs. Audacity will never listen to me. Okay? But you won't find me listening to this guy if I'm ever in Detroit. I'll tell you that much. It's sad. It really is sad. I am so sorry that you feel this way. I'm so sorry for the people who had to hear this. It sickens me, not just as an official, not just as a fan, but as a human being. That's poor, buddy. That is low down, poor nonsense that we do not need in our sports community. What else is there to say? I am insulted that you would say this on the air. And the more I think about it, the more I feel like I got to do something like write you a letter or write your company a letter and say, "You kidding me?" That's just sad, man. That's just absolutely sad. So I wanted to point that out for a couple of purposes. Okay, first is to educate those who will listen. Those who choose to be empowered by our message. I hope you've learned that what occurred in this incident was actually correct. Whether he missed the call or not, Derek Thomas was well within his right to eject Nico Horner and Craig Counsell. You cannot say the word "you" like that. And secondly, as our buddy Sean likes to say, let's see the forest for the trees. The dude had a good game. And you're going to just say, "Oh, you're having a bad day." Nope. We all need to grow up a little bit, including you, Mike Valenti. It's sick and it's sad that you have that job and that you have the power to do what you did. And there are no consequences. That's just wrong, buddy. That's just wrong. I wish I had better things to say. I wish I could end this on a more positive note, but unfortunately, that's where we are, folks. So I'll put the bookmark here for you, and I want to thank you for joining me today on this episode. We will talk to everybody in just a couple of short weeks. Remember, we're at facebook.com/OSIP Foundation, X and Instagram at OSIP Foundation, hashtag how you play the game. You can always check us out at osipfoundation.org and contact the show using the email address podcast@osipfoundation.org. Until we talk to everybody again in just a few short weeks, please treat each other with respect. How You Play the Game is a production of the OSIP Foundation, Incorporated. The producer-engineer of this episode is Sean Ryan. Music by Soundspring Studio. The executive producer of How You Play the Game is Jack Furlong. For more information, visit osipfoundation.org.